Have you ever thought about the dark side of pornography addiction? It's a question many people don't ponder, but the reality is that it's a growing issue, particularly among middle-aged men. The UK Addiction Treatment Centre in London reports a significant increase in the number of men over 50 seeking help for an X-rated obsession. Take Danny, for example, a 45-year-old software developer from Watford. What started as an innocent curiosity soon turned into an all-consuming addiction. At the height of his addiction, Danny was viewing porn over 10 times a day. And it wasn't just at home. The addiction followed him everywhere. At work, he'd sneak into the toilets to watch on his mobile phone. At home, he'd deceive his girlfriend, watching secretly behind her back. This was not a harmless pastime for Danny. It was an insidious, gnawing obsession that dictated his every waking moment. He would spend hours each day on free sites, engrossed in a world of fantasy that was far removed from his reality. The thrill of it all was intoxicating, but it was also a toxic refuge from the harsh realities of life, and the cost was significant. His relationship with his girlfriend, once vibrant and fulfilling, began to crumble under the weight of his addiction. The intimate connection they once shared withered away as real-life intimacy lost its luster compared to the artificial scenarios played out on his screen. Eventually, his secret was exposed, leading to their breakup. Danny's addiction also began to affect his work. He missed deadlines, his performance suffered, and his colleagues started to notice his frequent absences, but he was too ashamed to admit the truth. In the end, Danny's addiction to pornography cost him his relationship and nearly even his job. It's a stark reminder that even seemingly harmless habits can spiral out of control, highlighting the dark side of addiction. What began as innocent curiosity for Danny quickly morphed into an all-consuming addiction. As a software developer, Danny found himself working from home more often than not. With this newfound freedom, he discovered a dark side of the internet he had never explored before. Hours upon hours were spent on free sites, his eyes glued to the screen, as he dove deeper into the world of pornography. Every waking hour was consumed with thoughts of when he could next indulge in his newfound vice. His addiction was relentless, gnawing at the very fabric of his existence. It became a constant companion, a shadow lurking in the back of his mind, seemingly harmless yet insidiously destructive. His addiction didn't just stay at home. It followed him to work, to the supermarket, to family gatherings. It was there in the back of his mind, a constant itch that needed to be scratched. When he was at work, he'd sneak off to the toilets to watch porn on his phone. It was a secret he carried with him, a secret he was both ashamed of and yet couldn't let go. Then there was his girlfriend. He loved her, and yet he found himself lying to her, sneaking behind her back to watch porn. He'd tell her he was going for a shower, but instead he'd just turn on the water and sit in the corner of the room, phone in hand, lost in his addiction. The guilt of lying to her was a heavy burden, but the addiction was stronger. Danny's relationship with porn was complex. It was his escape from reality, his refuge from the harsh world. It gave him a sense of pleasure and excitement that nothing else could. But as time passed, the thrill began to fade, replaced by a sense of emptiness and despair. He was spiraling down a rabbit hole, his life slowly being consumed by his addiction. But pornography became Danny's drug of choice, a toxic refuge from the harsh realities of life. Danny's addiction began to take a toll on his personal life. What was initially a source of thrill and escape gradually morphed into a destructive force, causing profound damage to his relationships and professional life. His 3-year relationship with his girlfriend, once intimate and meaningful, started to crumble under the weight of his addiction. The real-life physical connection they shared was replaced by the artificial and fleeting satisfaction of pornography. Real intimacy became mundane, and the bond they shared began to wither. His girlfriend, although suspecting Danny's addiction, was oblivious to the extent of his obsession. She would occasionally stumble upon the evidence of his addiction in his search history, but Danny would downplay it. The truth, however, was far more severe than she could imagine. The revelation of Danny's addiction only came to light after their relationship ended. The breakup was the consequence of a toxic cycle of deceit and addiction that Danny was trapped in. The fallout was devastating. The person who once shared his life was now gone, leaving Danny alone with his addiction. But the consequences didn't stop at his personal life. His professional life too began to unravel. As his addiction spiraled, Danny's focus at work dwindled. He started to miss deadlines, His productivity waned and his work quality suffered. His colleagues, unaware of his struggle, could only wonder about his frequent disappearances to the restroom and his declining performance. The truth, which Danny was too embarrassed to share, was that his addiction was consuming his life. His obsession seeped into every corner of his existence, blurring the lines between his professional and personal life. In the aftermath of their breakup, Danny's days blurred together in a haze of arousal and self-loathing. His life had become a series of moments between his next fix, a cycle of pleasure and guilt that was slowly eroding his sense of self. The consequences of his addiction were clear, and the toll they were taking on his life was undeniable. The physical toll of Danny's addiction was undeniable. Danny's nights were sleep-deprived, consumed by the relentless pursuit of his next fix. As the sun set, his world would darken, and the flickering light of a computer screen would become his only companion. His eyes, once vibrant and full of life, were now haunted by the ghost of a man he used to be. The spark had been replaced by dark circles, a testament to countless nights spent in the clutches of addiction. His health began to deteriorate. Once a picture of vitality, Danny's body was now a mere shell of its former self. His once robust frame was now frail, his skin pale and lifeless. His eyes, once so full of life, were now sunken and hollow, underscoring the physical toll his addiction had taken. The cost of his obsession was etched deeply into his face, a constant reminder of the man he had become. His energy levels plummeted, and with it his productivity at work. He was constantly fatigued, his mind clouded by the fog of addiction. His once sharp intellect was now dulled, his concentration fragmented. He struggled to keep up with his work, deadlines missed, and tasks left incomplete. His professional life was crumbling, just like his personal life had. The addiction was relentless, and Danny was trapped in its vicious cycle. His physical health was deteriorating, and so was his mental well-being. The guilt, the shame, the regret, all compounded into a heavy burden that weighed him down, both physically and emotionally. But the physical signs were just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface, the addiction was wreaking havoc on his mental and emotional health. The shame and guilt were eating him up from the inside, leaving him emotionally drained and mentally exhausted. The addiction had not only taken a toll on his body, but it had also scarred his soul. Danny's story is a stark reminder of the dark side of pornography addiction. There are important lessons to be learned from Danny's experience. Danny's story is a stark reminder of how an unchecked addiction, even one that might seem harmless at first, can spiral out of control and consume every aspect of our lives. It's not just about the physical toll it takes, but also the emotional and mental health consequences, as well as the impact on our relationships and work life. Porn addiction, just like any other addiction, is characterized by a loss of control, intense craving, and continued engagement in the addictive behavior despite adverse consequences. It's a compulsive behavior that can lead to serious repercussions, much like what Danny experienced. His story serves as a cautionary tale that highlights the dangers and consequences of porn addiction. It's a toxic cycle that can be difficult to break free from without professional help. And that's an important part of the lesson here. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness, but rather a step towards regaining control of one's life. There's a wide range of resources available, from therapy and counseling to support groups and treatment programs. These can provide the necessary tools to overcome addiction and regain a healthy lifestyle. It's about understanding the root cause of the addiction, learning coping mechanisms, and rebuilding a life free from the clutches of addiction. Another key takeaway from Danny's story is the importance of honesty and open communication, especially with the people close to us. His fear of hurting his girlfriend and the associated shame led him to hide his problem, which only exacerbated the situation. Being open about our struggles can pave the way for understanding, support, and recovery. Lastly, Danny's story teaches us about resilience. Despite the adversities he faced, he managed to recognize his problem and sought help. It's a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome even the most challenging situations. Remember, it's never too late to seek help for addiction. Let Danny's story be a lesson to us all.